All right, welcome back. I'm going to get to some of your asks today, so let's just dive right in. Let's see. Here's the first one. Hi, I'm the Nani with the ask about the art of wood, the American Gothic. Please note that I'm not brilliant on finding clues. I slapped up Google and found some details that I find interesting, though. First of all, I think this time Daryl is not represented on the painting, but he is the painter himself. Interesting. Here's why I think that. The painting represents a white house in the background, and there's a farmer and his daughter in the front. People that Wood fancied would be living there are Beth and Herschel. Okay, I'm with you. Beth grew up in that white, serene farmhouse where she fits in, while Daryl does not, in his opinion. Daryl in still kind of confirms that when he listed why their lives were so different before the apocalypse. The farmer's real-life model was the family's dentist. It's not exactly a vet, but he was a person caring for the family's health, just like Herschel did. There are also some very interesting facts. The artist first sketched the house on an envelope, then returned later to actually make an art. Far-fetched, but Team Family also returned for Beth's body. Wood confirms that the lady is not the wife, but the farmer's grown-up daughter. This might confirm that Beth is a grown-up. Yeah, I like that. Wood intended to portray the father and daughter as survivors, while there are some art historians who think the daughter is mourning the father on the art. Closed curtains, dark outfit, sad facial expression. So like Beth mourning Herschel. Also Wood, there's the statement Wood made, I had to go to France to appreciate Iowa, where the house is at. That also links Daryl to the artist. Wow. Yeah, that's interesting. The painting itself was displayed in England and Paris for a while. I'm still looking that art up, so I'm hoping to find more. Yeah, no, I really like the details you've come up with here. And yeah, that all makes sense to me. Like, yeah, especially that last one. They had to go to France to appreciate Iowa. Yeah. Totally. So yeah, tell us if you find anything else. I really, really like that. I don't really have a whole lot to add, except that I agree. I don't have any problems with anything you stated there. So yeah, great job digging that up. And thank you for sending it in. Okay, next one. Pages Learn to Think. Hello. What's your take on Daryl and Carol mirroring the Daryl and Isabel scene from Daryl Dixon season 1? Kind of weirded me out, especially with the Carol Walker to Blonde Walker to Carol Walker thing. So I have 2 of these that talk about a scene that's mirroring Daryl and Isabel, and I'm not 100% sure I know which one you mean. Let me read the other one I have that's similar to this. What do you think of the spoiled scene of Daryl and Carol? I find it a bit uncomfortable that showrunners did everything they could to shut down Carol happening. Now it looks like they just slapped their hands on their bellies and decided to go a different route. I mean, I didn't really feel nervous, but as I'm looking around Tumblr, everyone seems nervous. The scene certainly looks like a copy of the Isabel Daryl scene, which kind of seems like the copy of the Bethyl hug in prison. What is their plan at the moment? I'm trying to gaslight myself that they wouldn't let it be spoiled if Carol was to happen. Please ease my mind. Okay. Again, I don't know if I'm just not seeing the same thing you are or if I'm not thinking of the right scene. I'm assuming the scene you guys are talking about is in the preview for season 3, kind of near the end when Carol she's got kind of her shirt down over her shoulder because it looks like she's injured and Daryl is sitting behind her. I'm assuming that's the scene you mean because it does kind of mirror one of the last scenes in season 1 of Daryl Dixon where Isabel was kind of washing the stab wound she had and Daryl sat behind her and was helping her. That's the only thing I can think of that might be a mirror scene. And to me, though, it doesn't scream the Bethyl hug in prison, and that makes me think I'm thinking of the wrong scene here. But let me know if I am. Assuming that is the scene you're talking about, it doesn't make me nervous at all. I mean, okay, I could go a few different ways with this. Number 1, you're right that they absolutely shut down Carol ever happening, and it's not going to happen. They wouldn't have done all of that and then go, oh, haha, just kidding, and had it happen anyway. No, they've never done that. They'll never do that. That's not a thing. So I'm not worried about Carol and Daryl becoming an item. You could even, I know that it doesn't make sense literally, but you could almost say that Daryl and Isabel didn't really happen. I mean, yes, I get it. I know. They kissed. And they were going to embark on a relationship if she hadn't died. But in the sense of she clearly wasn't his long-term romantic love interest, it's not like that scene pointed to that. You know what I mean? If anything, it pointed to a closeness between them and the fact that they had come to trust one another. And that is true of Daryl and Carol as well. From a literal standpoint, that does look to me like she's injured in that scene, and Daryl is just sitting with her, possibly taking care of her, or possibly just visiting with her if there's somebody else, a doctor there, taking care of her. But it doesn't scream Bethyl hug to me at all, and it's not something that worried me when I saw it in the trailer. So it is interesting that you point out that they're mirroring it. But I think what overall what you guys are trying to say is that you feel like that means that Daryl and Carol are going to get together, and I don't think that's what that means. So let me harken back to something previously to explain this. Leah. Remember that in or around the Leah storyline, when I believe it was in Find Me when we actually got the full story, they had that thing where Carol and Leah mirrored each other exactly and had the exact same conversation with Daryl about fishing, remember? In both cases, the woman, Leah and Carol, said, I'm going to do this, and he was a little bit skeptical, and then they actually caught fish, and he said, no way. They did the exact same thing with Leah and Carol, so there was an exact mirror there. I will say that I'm not sure exactly why they're doing that. I'm not sure what's going through the writers' heads when they decide to do that. Maybe it's a stand-in thing. Maybe very often, just from a companionship point of view, Carol is a stand-in for Beth. And then, for a while, because she wasn't the person in his life, Leah was. Leah became the stand-in for Beth, and then the same with Isabel. That's the only thing I can think of. But more to the point here, they mirrored Carol and Leah. Leah and Daryl obviously had a relationship, but Carol and Daryl didn't have a relationship just because she was mirrored with Leah. You see what I mean? And that won't be the case with Isabel either. So that's about the best answer I can give to that. Again, I'm not sure exactly why they're doing that, and I'm interested to see what's going on in that scene. And maybe once we get that scene, we can compare it to the Isabel scene from season 1 and maybe glean some insights by comparing them really specifically like that. But of course, we'll have to wait for season 3 to come out. But bottom line, it doesn't make me nervous. I haven't seen anyone even talking about that or acting nervously. So if they have been, I have missed it. But I just think that's another scene from the preview from season 3. And I mean, it didn't bother me at all. So in terms of what is their plan for Daryl and Carol, I promise you it's not romance, so it's not something that I'm worried about. So I hope that helps, and I hope that answers your question, and if I am completely misreading that and you're talking about a different scene, then write in again and tell me which one you're asking about. All right. Granny TWD, how's it going? I remember Daryl talking with Judith when she asked him to promise he wouldn't leave. He said he couldn't because no one can know for sure what will happen. Now with Laurent, he tells him right away he will see him again. He promises. Laurent says you can't promise, and Daryl reiterates his promise. Why do you think Daryl would make a promise now that he can't know for sure he can keep? Thanks for your take on 2 of my favorite Daryl scenes. That's a really interesting question. I mean, in a way, I think we're almost, well, okay, I'm of 2 minds about it. Kind of dealing with apples and oranges in the sense that with Judith, I think he was just trying to get her to see realism, and that it kind of actually reminds me of 606 when he was talking with Dwight and Sherry. I don't remember specifically what the conversation was about, but he said something similar. He said, no one can promise safety. Like, there's nobody that's 1000% safe and nothing's going to happen to them, these days in our world. And that's just truth. That's just reality for, the world of The Walking Dead. So I think that's kind of what he was telling Judith. Like, he was being gentle about it, but also saying, I can't promise anything because lots of things could happen. Now, of course, you could say the same thing about Laurent, but I think with Laurent, I think he's bonded with Laurent, and you could argue that he's not being terribly realistic, or at least he's not being unrealistic, but he's not being like brutally realistic right here, right? It's just Daryl has every intention of returning to him, and that's what he's trying to tell Laurent. I will come back. I will be there. You don't have to worry that I'm not going to come back. I'll figure out a way to get there. And of course, you could say the same thing to Judith, but I think he was just trying to make them understand different things in the moment. From more of a where Daryl's head is at standpoint, I think it could be argued that he's actually in, I would almost say, a better place now. people who are uber realistic, or almost, you can almost say like brutally honest. It's not that there's anything wrong with honesty. Of course, we should always be honest, but there's brutal honesty to the point where it can be harmful, to the point where it's in opposition to faith, right? Because you can always say, of course, we need to be realistic and people die in this world and that could happen. But if you're saying, especially to a child, don't look for me to come back because you've got to be prepared that I'm going to die someday. I mean, it's so doomsday, right? And of course, he wasn't super doomsday with Judith, but I mean, just the fact that he was trying to get her to see reality more shows that he wasn't in as hopeful a place back then. And you have to understand that there is, I mean, energetics is a thing, right? The energy of a thing, the belief of a thing can change what happens in reality. So someone who doesn't believe they're going to survive is probably not going to survive. And somebody who absolutely believes no matter what they're going to survive, they're going to figure out a way to do it, no matter how hard it is, no matter how hurt they get, right? So when he says this to Laurent, I just think that shows where his mindset is, that he is not going to say, hopefully I'll make it back, but I can't promise. It's him saying, I will get back to you no matter what. And if he's really bound and determined to do that, he will do it, you know? So it could be that too. I hadn't really thought to put those side by side as something different. It could be that the writers have something else in mind than what I've said, and I don't know that for sure, but it's really interesting. But that would be what I would, that's what comes to mind. Either that he was just having two different, he was trying to accomplish two different things there. One was to show Judith reality, and one was to, you know, and I mean, you could even say in terms of what he's trying to accomplish for them individually, because Judith, like Beth, was very hopeful and very positive and very optimistic. And, you know, maybe to the point where he thought he needed to ground her a little bit. Not that it's bad to be any of those things, but you just don't want to be so over the top that you're living in La La Land. And so he was just trying to ground her. But with Laurent, he actually wants to get Laurent to get on the plane and go with Ash. And so he's going to tell him whatever he needs to hear to get him on that plane, no matter what Daryl believes. And not that I don't think Daryl believed what he said. I think he did. But even if he didn't, I'm saying he was saying something hopeful, something he needed to say to make sure Laurent was okay going with Ash, because he wanted to get him out of the country and away from Janae's people and Losang and all of them. So anyway, that's just what I would think. And we'll have to revisit that to see if anything else relevant comes up to it, and if there's more that we're not hitting on yet. But thank you so much for your question. I like that one. All right, next one. I know it's probably no good because she can always do latergrams, but now that Emily isn't in New York City, I'm going to be keeping an extra close eye on her. Yeah, do. And let us know if you see anything suspicious. I actually did see a suspicious post yesterday, or 2 or 3 days ago. I don't remember when it was. And it was like only mildly suspicious, only something we could kind of sort of look at. But she mentioned bananas, and that's what really jumped out at me. Because remember, we had Caudron talking about bananas, and so we did all the banana posts, right? It was kind of like that. She was posting about dogs and blurry pictures, and then she wrote a poem. And so it was the poem, I think, that first caught my attention. Someone sent it to me because she talks about being a little light in it, which is very much what Beth is, right? They've called her that. Daryl's called her that. Norman's called her that a million times. So this is what she wrote. It's just one of her little freehand poems, and she posts things like this quite often. Isn't it funny, in a pitch black room, how a little light can shift the mood, and a single spark can color the space? It's kind of how I feel when I look at your face. So it's just a little love poem, but that's very much imagery that is similar to what they use to talk about Beth. And then on top of that, that was the biggest thing. Her caption talked about banana bread, and she posted some pictures of banana bread. So it just made me think of Caudron, and he's the serious character, and they used the banana symbol just in one of the last episodes of Daryl Dixon season 2. So that was, you know, it's not a smoking gun or anything, but it's something that was suspicious to me that she posted. So yeah, definitely keep an eye on her. I really don't follow the social media profiles very closely. So when I do see a post or when I do talk about it, it's because someone has sent it to me. So make sure and send those things in. Otherwise, chances are I will miss them. So yeah, thank you for doing that. Thank you for keeping an eye on her. And we look forward to hearing anything that you find. Okay, let's do one more. How are the fireflies a symbol of Beth? I might have answered this once before. It seems like I talked about it, but if I didn't, so there's kind of two ways. Number one, fire has always been a symbol of Beth. And you can see that because in Still, they had her start the fire. While it was showing Daryl hunting and skinning the snake and everything, she's the one who started the fire. And then, of course, she's the one who suggested they burn down the moonshine shack. So fire, in general, is a symbol of Beth. And so just the fact that they used fireflies, they didn't use dragonflies or... I don't know what else, fruit flies, I guess. That probably wouldn't really fit the analogy, but you know what I mean, just fireflies. The fire part is something that we're kind of honing in on. Then there's the fact that fireflies light up in the darkness, so that kind of goes hand in hand with her being the little light in the black tunnel, which I've talked about a lot lately. And then I know that fireflies are also very specifically a Sirius symbol, so... I believe Frangipanilov did a post about this. I don't have the URL on hand, but if you go and search her blog, just search for fireflies, well, hopefully it'll come up. I know that Tumblr's search engine is far from the best, but I know that she has posted about this before. So in general, when you're talking about Sirius, which is the dog star that goes away and returns, fireflies are part of the symbolism of the dog star. So it's just kind of all works together, and it definitely, if fireflies were tied to anybody in the show, it would be Beth. So hopefully that answers it. That's how, those three ways. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap it up for today, but I will be back soon to answer more of your questions. Bye.